Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. Okay. Man, Wednesdays are always crunch time for me. I got a bunch of stuff I got to do before I hit the clinic. And so we're going to dive right into this morning's Q&A, which is actually kind of a fun one. It's about bench press, so everybody's going to love this. This comes from Ben. Ben says, "Hey Bill, I hope you're well." I am. Thank you for asking. Thanks for doing all these Q&As. You're welcome. He says, "I've got a wide ISA client who presents with limited shoulder internal rotation on both sides, more on the right. He also has limited shoulder flexion, but more on the left. So it's more limitation on the left. And he experiences right shoulder pain when bench pressing. His right elbow likes to tuck in more. All his hip measurements are limited as well. Would love your thoughts and solutions on this." Okay, Ben, you didn't give me a whole lot to work with, but you gave me some really, really good clues that I think we've got enough information to help you out. So let's dig into this. First and foremost, let's describe what's actually going on while he's bench pressing. So you're talking about a position where the left arm seems to be away from his body and his right arm seems to be tucked in. And so what that representation actually is his rib cage and thorax are actually turning to the right. So when you have your hands fixed on a bar, that's going to secure the hands in pronation, which is going to put us towards internal rotation, which is where we got to be anyway for a bench press. But point being, if I've got limited shoulder flexion, the typical compensatory strategy for limited shoulder flexion, especially in the early range of shoulder flexion, which you would be exposed to in a bench press, is to turn away from it. So again, so he's actually turning his rib cage on the bench, and so this arm looks like it's far away, and this one looks like it's tucked in. Now, here's the problem with that, is because what you've actually done is you've actually turned the right shoulder towards greater internal rotation. So I need internal rotation for a bench press. I need internal rotation for my compressive strategy, concentric orientation, and propulsive activities, and then I need to move through a space that demands I have internal rotation. So we got a triple whammy there, and so you got a ton of compression in that right shoulder under these circumstances. And so that may be why your client is experiencing right shoulder pain. This is actually a really cool little compensatory strategy, and it's probably not that uncommon. So probably what I'll do is, as soon as I get a little bit of time, Ben, I'm gonna go into the gym. I'll probably grab Eric, and we'll go through how this is actually happening. So if I don't do that soon, please send me a reminder. All right, so what's our solution here? Step number one, because you're dealing with a painful situation, you're going to have to clear this client for any structural issues. And so if you don't have the capacity to do that, I suggest you get them to somebody that can. Let's rule out anything that may be important under these circumstances, because whenever we're dealing with pain, we've got to clear those structural issues. Number two, take a break from a bench press. You basically got two options here. You either take the bench press away because it is problematic, or you keep training the heck out of it as hard as you possibly can until he breaks, and then you have to take a break from the bench press. Either way, you're gonna have to take a break. I suggest you do the first option there, much safer and much more caring for that client. In fact, what I would do, Ben, is I would remove all barbell exercises from his program at this point. You're basically fixing the extremities under any circumstance, whether we're talking about a squat, a deadlift, a row, or any kind of pressing. You're fixing the extremities in a position that are going to promote more internal rotation. From a rehab standpoint, if you don't do manual therapies yourself, you're probably going to want to find somebody that does. If this person has any level of hypertrophy or is actually a very, very strong human being, you're probably going to need some help getting this rib cage to move. So you got to get a dynamic infrasternal angle. So that might require some manual therapy. We need sternal movement, because if you're missing internal rotation, you don't have pump handle movement in the anterior thorax, so we need to recapture that. Clavicles are going to be limited in the ability to rotate. We got to get the ribs to move more effectively. You're going to have to decompress the scapula from the dorsal rostral space. So that's a manual technique, by the way. I have a video of that on YouTube. I also have one for the scapular elevation. So look at those two, and if you don't do manual therapies, get somebody that can apply those techniques. You may have to have somebody that's good with their hands to help reduce some of the concentric orientation as well. Basically, you've got a guy that's really, really compressed, and you've got to get a whole bunch of expansion here to restore his ability to move freely through space. Okay, from a rehab exercise standpoint, I got a couple of videos on YouTube specifically for dorsal rostral expansion. So there's a seated variation, and then there's a better band pull apart video that's also really effective for dorsal rostral expansion. One seated, one standing. You can immediately go to some sort of high oblique sit activity, which is going to help start to reshape the thorax a little bit, get some of that anterior posterior expansion, and as you can move into a lower oblique sit type of an activity, which would be closer to what looks like a side plank variation, you'll start to get some pump handle activity from that. You can do supine cross connects, so they should be in a non-provocative position based on the upper extremity, and then a sideline propulsive activity will also be helpful. Again, sideline is a great way, especially for these wide people, to get some of that anterior posterior expansion because we're taking advantage of gravity. Once you can capture 90 degrees of shoulder flexion without pain, supine arm bars are now on the table. You can throw in a screwdriver on top of that, excuse me, to promote some internal external rotation, and then you can eventually move to a prone propulsive activity, which is going to get you a ton of that posterior expansion and yielding strategy that your client is lacking. If you want to take you into the gym, we've got suitcase carries that are probably on the table right now. Eventually you can probably turn that into a rack carry so we can get some ER and IR out of that. Backwards sled drags with two handles to promote the yielding strategy posteriorly, so you get some expansion, you get some pump handle action. You're also going to get some hip mobility out of that as well. High rep tricep push downs with a band also is going to keep you close to that transition between internal and external rotation and give you some of the yielding strategy posteriorly in that dorsal rostral space. Again, you're going to need that. So dumbbell curl variations, there's a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel for that you can also use to help keep that dorsal rostral space expanded. The key element with any of the resistive activities that I've just mentioned is that you can breathe through it. The minute you have a breath holding strategy under any circumstance during these activities, you are promoting the limitation that you are trying to alleviate. So keep that in mind. So in a nutshell, what you got is you got something that's very, very compressed. They're using compensatory strategies during the activities in question. So in the bench press, maybe they're carrying them around, I don't know, but either way, when they're bench pressing, this is what they're using. So you have to reduce the compressive strategies and eliminate the interference through all of the activities that you're doing. So you might have to restructure some programming. Unilateral activities are going to be much more effective than bilateral symmetrical activities, and take the barbell out of their hands. So Ben, I hope that gives you something to work with. If it doesn't, if you need more, go to askbillhartman@gmail.com and we will provide you another solution if you have another question. Everybody have a great Wednesday, and I will see you. Oh, coaches, come to the Coffee and Coaches conference call tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. It's going to be Thursday. It's Chips and Salsa Day tomorrow. Have a great day.